Greetings from the University of Oklahoma. My name is Daniel Simon. I'm the editor-in-chief of World Literature Today magazine here at OU. I'm here with Erik Gleibermann, who is with us today from the San Francisco Bay Area and is on campus for the Neustadt Festival of International Literature and Culture. Erik is a board member for WLT as well as an educator, journalist, and writer in his own right. And Erik, could you tell us a little bit about where you're originally from and your interest in contributing to WLT and why you're here? Most of all.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So I grew up in Ann Arbor, Michigan, so university town. So I love university town, so it's good to be in Norman. I moved to the Bay Area probably about 30 years ago now. And I've been an educator as a high school teacher, right in the thick of things. And now am more of a journalist, education journalist, social justice journalist, cultural journalist as well. And then being at the Neustadt Festival is sort of my more literary side. I think I sort of try to bridge different areas of writing experience.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And the Neustadt Festival is in honor of Edwidge Danticat this year. She's here to receive the $50,000 Neustadt International Prize for Literature, which WLT awards every other year. And so we have her arriving today on campus and a number of other writers and performers, dancers, and scholars who will be here to celebrate her work. And tomorrow you will be interviewing Edwidge for the January issue of WLT. And could you tell a little bit about the essay that you wrote on bilingual writers for us earlier this year and your interest in the type of conversation that you're going to have with Edwidge tomorrow?
Yes. So the article was about the experience of the bilingual writer in the crafting of literature. What goes on in the mind when you're negotiating between two languages, and the experiences of, there were 8 writers, Edwidge was one of them, Gary Steingart, Russian, Hajin, Chinese, a number of Spanish speakers, Julia Alvarez and Daniel Alarcon and some others. Very different experiences, very different ways of actually employing the language or not. You can, for example, Edwidge thinks in Creole, Haitian Creole when she writes, but writes completely in English. So her process is sort of bilingual, literally bilingual in the process of writing. Others are much more oriented towards English, although the other language is operating in the background. And that partly reflects the fact that they're all immigrants, all these 8 writers to the United States, and they came at different times in their lives. Edwidge came to the United States when she was 12.
And with Creole, I noticed that in her latest book of essays, she refers to her mother a lot and kind of bookends that collection. It's called The Art of Death, where she's writing about kind of being accompanying her mother through the kind of the end stages of her life, but also other writers who are writing about death in great works of literature. But she refers to Creole phrases quite often in those essays, and so it's clear that she's thinking through Creole a lot as she's writing in English, obviously. Okay, and so that interview, again, tomorrow will take place during the festival, but it will actually then be published in the January issue of WLT, so we'll look forward to that. Today we're really also thinking about the November issue, which is forthcoming. It's actually at the printer as we speak and will be out a little bit later this month. If you go to worldlit.org, you can find it online by October 25th is our date for projecting the digital edition to go live, and it should be in bookstores as well by the end of the month as well. And Alice Walker is the cover feature for the issue. We have a preview of the cover here where you can see a glimpse of her beautiful photo that will be featured as a lead into your interview with her that you conducted earlier this year, late in the summer, where you spoke to her about her new book of poems that's forthcoming. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the interview and some of the themes that came out in your discussion?
Sure. In terms of the poetry that she's writing, in comparison to maybe some of her work from some years ago, I would say it's very stripped down language. She in recent years has been very focused on her meditation, and one feels reading them is almost like stripped down. She would not say Zen. She doesn't affiliate with any particular tradition, but that kind. She says Basho is one of her influences. So it has that feeling. In terms of the subject matter, she is very much. It feels like trying to balance between a very deep grief around what is happening in the world today, particularly environmentally, and joy. And they're sometimes connected. She talks about having to go through grief to reach a place of joy. So even within the same poem, you'll see pretty graphic images of violence, often politically driven violence, and then a transition into a kind of celebration or honoring of those who are challenging political violence. There's a lot of homages in the book to people who've been courageous fighters for social justice.
And to writers who serve as spiritual teachers.
Absolutely.
In her own words, and you could really kind of see her own work as being spiritual in that sense, kind of coming through this darkness that surrounds us, and finding some sort of redemptive hope in writing itself. So there's a great poem that's featured alongside your interview. It's an excerpt from a poem called My 12-12-12. That's a reference to the Virgin of Guadalupe celebrations in Mexico. Would you like to read a little bit of that poem, just give us a flavor of some of her work?
And let me just say that I asked her, I said, my 12-12-12, what? I don't know what that means. The 12th of December is the day that honors the Virgen de Guadalupe, the Virgin of Guadalupe, and it was in 2012 that she went to this celebration. And there is really a feeling of being connected to the earth that one gets in the poem. So I'll just read this excerpt.
And she's going to Mexico quite frequently in the winter
She lives.
months. I mean, she lives there.
Yeah, she lives part of the year.
Yeah,
right,
so
absolutely.
she's kind of writing that from that experience as well.
She is, yes. But there we were, a small contingent, waiting for her. A nun showed up first, of course, this being hundreds of years later. I liked her, though. She led us in song. And soon, sure enough, she appeared. Brown, slender, somber and very young, maybe still languid from interrupted sleep, this year's incarnation of La Virgen de Guadalupe. Shivering a bit in the morning chill, she wrapped her green mantle that tended to slip more securely over her loving head. With the help of many hands, her neighbors and friends, she climbed into the back of the waiting pickup truck. I could have started weeping right there, but no, I held on, though happiness and love welled up behind my eyelids. They have survived, I thought.
So right there you see that kind of embodied spirituality coming through in this young Mexican girl who is chosen to represent the Virgin in this procession. So I'm really excited about sharing just a glimpse of her poetry with readers in the November issue. Your excellent interview with Alice Walker, I think, will be a highlight for readers to look forward to. There's some other features in the issue that I think will be of interest to our readers. We have a whole section on illness and literature, so 4 stories and a poem that kind of relate to themes of the end of life and illness as it relates to the human condition. There's a beautiful essay by Anna Badkin on, it's called An Anatomy of Lostness, and she kind of meditates on some of these same issues on humanity's kind of lostness in this modern world and her own sense of looking for roots. There's an interview with the Vietnamese American writer Vu Tran that Michelle Johnson conducted, and then poetry from India, Iran, Libya, and Korea, as well as lots of wonderful book reviews and all sorts of other excellent fiction and other things that are always inside the issue. So we'll look forward to that being on going live later this month and seeing it in bookstores. And really congratulations on all your contributions to WLT in just this short amount of time that you've been affiliated with us. And
it's a great honor to be connected.
Having Alice Walker and with Edwidge Danticat, these interviews I think will be of great interest to our readers.